First Patriots, Chapter 10. The next morning, I did just what Elizabeth's note asked me to do. Liberty and I arrived at Manchester Middle School 30 minutes before school started. In addition, I texted Tommy, and only Tommy, to meet us near the big oak tree at the back of the school. The back door of the school opened, and Elizabeth walked out. She was dressed in the blue gown that she'd received from King George III. Her hair was expertly curled and pinned to the top of her head. She looked like a fairy princess. All she was missing was a magical wand. "Where's Thomas?" said Elizabeth, sounding annoyed. "Good morning, Elizabeth," I said. "You look especially pretty today. Is there a special occasion?" Of course, I knew she intended to time jump to 18th century England and visit with King George III. "As a matter of fact, yes, there is a special occasion," she said, "and you're my ride." Which word in the third paragraph means the same or nearly the same as irritated? Irritated. Third paragraph. Where's Thomas? Oh, here's the third paragraph. So 1, 2, 3. "Where's Thomas?" said Elizabeth, sounding annoyed. So which word means the same or nearly the same as irritated? Where, said, sounding annoyed. "Sorry I'm late," said Tommy, who sounded a little winded. "I practically ran the whole way here." Elizabeth sighed. "Ugh, I hope you're not sweaty." Tommy lifted one of his arms and smelled under his armpit. "Nope," he said. "I still smell like an ocean breeze." At least that's what my deodorant said. Liberty turned to smell Tommy's armpit as well. "Oh, that's disgusting," Elizabeth said. Liberty replied, "I think you smell way better than an ocean breeze. Seriously, sometimes the breeze from the ocean smells like dead fish. I'm just saying that I don't think the person who picked the name of that deodorant has ever been to the ocean." Elizabeth sighed and said, "Thomas, help me get in the saddle and make sure my dress doesn't get snagged." "Pardon me, Elizabeth," I said, "but I don't remember us discussing any sort of field trip." "Mr. Revere," said Elizabeth, sounding bothered by my questions, "I thought we'd been over this once. I'm in charge, remember? I have the video of all of you time jumping, so if you want to keep teaching the honors history class, you'll do what I say and don't ask any questions." "Ugh, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the barn," Liberty mumbled. I pondered the situation and an idea popped into my head. I called for Tommy. "You better get dressed in your colonial clothes," I told him. As Tommy walked over to get his clothes, I whispered in his ear, "When I give you the signal, tell Liberty to ignore whatever Elizabeth says and concentrate on time jumping to Philadelphia, October 1774, Carpenter's Hall." Which two words in the 11th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as thought? Okay, well, let's go find the 11th paragraph. Look for every indent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so this one right here. Thought. Which two words? I pondered the situation. I thought about the situation, and an idea popped into my head. I called for Tommy. "You better get dressed in your colonial clothes," I told him. This says two words. Let's see what this says. Pondered, comma, idea. Pondered and idea. Those both mean thought. Good. "What's taking you guys so long?" Elizabeth huffed. "Got it," Tommy whispered back as he finished buttoning up his vest. Tommy quickly climbed up onto Liberty's saddle, and we both helped Elizabeth to sit behind him. "Let's go, Liberty. Open the time portal," Elizabeth said impatiently. "Aren't you going to tell us where we're going?" Liberty questioned. "I'll give you the destination when you're ready to jump," Elizabeth said slyly. She was a sneaky girl, but I was not going to allow her to time jump to England and divulge future secrets to King George. I knew her plan was to change history, and I couldn't let that happen. I said, "This meeting can do nothing more to save the country." I hoped Tommy remembered what this was. I hoped Tommy remembered that this was the secret signal. Huh? Liberty said, confused. Hey, that's what Samuel Adams said is. Oh, I get it, Tommy said. He leaned over and whispered into Liberty's ear. My destiny awaits, said Elizabeth. Giddy up, charge, let's go already. Liberty started to gallop and said, rush, rush, rushing to history. As we approached the time portal, Elizabeth yelled, England, November 1773, Windsor Castle. The next second, we jumped through a cosmic curtain of purple and gold and landed near a 2-story colonial brick building. Other colonial buildings could be seen nearby, and it was obvious that we were not at Windsor Castle, or in England for that matter. Which word in the 7th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as share? Okay, let's go find the 7th paragraph. Count the indent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She was a sneaky girl. So it's in this paragraph. And what are we looking for again? Share. She was a sneaky girl, but I was not going to allow her to time jump to England and divulge future secrets to King George. Aha, share future secrets. Let's see if we're right. Yep, there it is. Divulge means to share or to tell. The primitive plaza was nothing like the grandiose gardens of England, and the few people we saw wore simple coats or dresses, not the fancy fashions of 18th century England. The cold breeze whipped through the plaza and up through the nearby trees. Mother Nature had been busy painting the leaves a bright orange, a brilliant yellow, and a vibrant red. The leaves clung to nearby branches as they spastically fluttered in the wind. Where's the castle? This isn't England, you imbecile! Ugh! Where are we, and what year is this? Elizabeth demanded. As your time travel tour guide, I'm obligated to tell you that we're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it's October 26th, 1774, said Liberty. What? Elizabeth yelled. Are you deaf? I specifically said Windsor Castle. It's supposed to be November 1773. She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. With a venomous tone, she said, I'm going to give you one more chance to get this right. Liberty, open the time portal. I'm afraid he won't do that, I said. You see, Elizabeth, we know your plan to meet with King George and leak information about the Boston Tea Party. Elizabeth scowled and said, Get me off this thing. I quickly helped Elizabeth down from the saddle. She folded her arms and said, You found my note, didn't you? She looked back and forth between Tommy and me. Finally, she said, I confess, you caught me, but it doesn't change anything. Yes, it does, blurted Tommy. Oh, my dear Thomas, said Elizabeth like she was speaking to a 5-year-old. You can't stop a falling star from streaking across the sky. You can't stop an avalanche once it's racing down a mountain. And you can't stop me from reaching the greatness I was born to reach. I really should be thanking you because with Liberty, I can reach that greatness a lot faster. Okay, which word in the 2nd paragraph means the same or nearly the same as idiot? 2nd paragraph. Okay, so this is the 1st paragraph, and here's the next indent. This is the 2nd paragraph. Where's the castle? This isn't England, you imbecile. Ah, there it is. That was the insult. Imbecile. I-M-B-E-C-I-L-E. Imbecile. Which is another word for idiot. Somebody, yeah. And then we have a map. How many colonies were there in the 1770s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. You can put the numbers or you can spell it. You are really going to tell the king about the Boston Tea Party? Tommy asked. Duh, said Elizabeth. It wasn't going to hurt anyone, and I would look like a hero to King George. I bet he would have given me a crown, or at least a title, and I could have 100 dresses just like this one. She twirled around and watched her dress fluff out as she spun. It's all about you, isn't it? Said Tommy. Double duh, said Elizabeth. But it could be about us. Help me reach King George, and I'll tell him to reward you too. Sorry, Elizabeth, but I would never sacrifice the future of America for my own gain or needs, I said. I'm with Mr. Revere, said Tommy firmly. Oh, you're such losers, Elizabeth whined. Well, you were trying to ruin the Boston Tea Party and stop it from happening, so technically you're captain of the losers, said Liberty as he stuck out his tongue at her. That's enough, you two, I said. We've arrived at a very important time in America. History tells us that the king and parliament were furious about the Boston Tea Party. In fact, the king was so mad, he punished the colonists by closing Boston Harbor, so ships weren't allowed to leave or enter. How did families get food? Tommy asked, concerned. Sister colonies were able to send some food and supplies, I said, but many families suffered, with many men out of work, and the redcoats swarmed Boston like Red Army ants. Good. I hope the king locks up the whole city, said Elizabeth. Which word in the 6th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as give up? Okay, let's go find the 6th paragraph. So this one up top is the first one, continued from the page before. So that's 1. And then count the indents. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but I would never sacrifice the future of America for my own gain or needs. Give up. Oh, give up. I would never give up the future of America. Sacrifice. I would never sacrifice. Sacrifice. He should ground everyone, feed them cooked spinach, and put coal in their Christmas stockings. That's a bit cruel, Liberty said, especially the cooked spinach part. Seriously, why do people ruin perfectly good spinach by cooking it? Liberty, I interrupted. We're in the middle of an important conversation. Oh, sorry. I'll let you and the Grinch finish, Liberty said. As I was saying, I turned to Elizabeth. The king definitely punished the Bostonians. When the other colonies heard what the king was doing, they were really mad. No kidding, said Tommy. King George really is the Grinch, and he ticks me off big time. I'm surprised the colonists didn't freak out earlier. Seriously, I'm not a colonist, but I don't have to be to know why they're so angry. The king doesn't let them vote. He taxes everything. He sends troops into their homes and harasses them on the streets. His laws are stealing the people's hard-earned money and causing families to go hungry. And he doesn't care who he's hurting. He's not a king. He's a tyrant, thief, whiner, jerk, and a bully. Sorry, Elizabeth, but King George is the biggest loser. He's out of control and he's got to be stopped. Elizabeth just looked away, nearly expressionless, with her arms folded. Tommy, I said, I'm very glad you understand the real issue here. In fact, the colonies have banded together in Philadelphia to fight back. Representatives called delegates from each of the colonies, except for Georgia, have come together here to decide what the colonies should do. What adjectives were used in the 6th paragraph to describe the king? Check all that apply. Oh, yeah, I know where that was. Let's count the paragraphs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, and I remember Tommy clicking those off. He's not a king. He's okay, here it is. Right there. Tyrant, thief, whiner, jerk, and a bully. Sweet, said Tommy with wide eyes. Is that why we're here? Is it a secret meeting? Do I know anybody that's coming? Is there a secret handshake? I wish Cam was here. I chuckled at Tommy's wild enthusiasm. I nodded. Tommy, you are about to meet some of the most educated, intelligent, skillful, and courageous men in America. In fact, they are gathered in that red brick building in front of us. I pointed to Carpenter's Hall. They are attending the First Continental Congress. Awesome, said Tommy. Exciting, said Liberty. Boring, complained Elizabeth. I'm tired of you babbling on about the colonists fighting back. I insist that we visit King George this instant, or else. What are you going to do? Tommy asked, smiling. You don't have much leverage without your blackmail video. Elizabeth huffed and puffed with exasperation. She finally said, just wait until we get back to Manchester Middle School. Who says we're bringing you back? Said Liberty. Seriously, I think she'd be fine as a colonist. I survived moving from one century to another, and I think I'm a better horse because of it. Elizabeth gasped. You wouldn't dare. She looked desperately at Tommy. Thomas, you can't let them leave me here. Tommy looked at me and then back at Elizabeth. He finally said, Elizabeth, you have a lot of things going for you, but nobody likes the way you treat them. You act like you're better than everyone else. You make Freedom feel like she's a fashion moron. You tell Liberty that he stinks. And you threaten to send Mr. Revere to a different school. And you want us to bring you back to Manchester Middle School so you can keep treating people like a piece of chewed gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe? No, thank you. If we bring you back, you're going to have to start treating people differently. Where are the delegates gathering? It's in the second paragraph. And they are gathering in Carpenter's Hall. Carpenter's Hall. This is where. Capital C, capital H. Notice the apostrophe after the S. Carpenter's Hall. You could also put First Continental Congress, but Carpenter's Hall is what it's supposed to be, really. Hey, I bring the teachers cupcakes, Elizabeth said in defense. Only when you're trying to bribe them to give you a good grade, said Tommy. Being truly nice to someone means being kind and thoughtful and considerate of others. It means complimenting Freedom about her hair or her smile or how smart she is. Okay, let's not go overboard, Elizabeth said. Being nice means not saying stuff that would make someone feel bad. For example, Liberty smells like a horse. He can't help it. It's just the way he is. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. It was hard to know what she was thinking or feeling. She said, Okay, I'm sorry, Liberty, for calling you odoriferous. But a body spray wouldn't hurt. Is that considered offensive? Here's the thing. You'll know when you're really being nice when you do something for someone else without expecting anything in return. People actually do that, Elizabeth gawked. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a bell from a distant tower. You don't need to tell me what time it is, Liberty grinned. It starts with an L and ends with an E. Latrine? Asked Tommy. Most people just say I have to go to the bathroom. Oh, brother, Liberty sighed. It's lunchtime. The doors of Carpenter's Hall opened, and, oops, we'll have to wait. Which word in the sixth paragraph means the same or nearly the same as smelly? I think we had this word before. It's got to be odoriferous. Let's go find the sixth paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, there it is. Odoriferous. Odoriferous. George Washington, Patrick Henry, and Edmund Pendleton traveled to the First Continental Congress at Carpenter's Hall, Philadelphia, September 1774. What year is it in the picture? 1774. Many distinguished-looking men dressed in colonial clothing exited the building. I didn't recognize most of them, but some of them I did. Look, there's Patrick Henry, Tommy said. Can I go say hi? Absolutely. Come on, Elizabeth, Tommy said. I'll introduce you. Cam is going to die when I tell him we bumped into Patrick Henry. He and Cam totally hit it off back in 1765. Suddenly, I noticed Samuel Adams coming out of the building with 2 other men standing on either side of him. I didn't recognize the one on the left, But the tall gentleman on the right was a dead ringer for George Washington. Liberty! Do you see who that is? I pointed. Which one? Oh, I see. Oh, wow. That's George Washington, Liberty whispered. He's as regal as ever. I've always loved the way he commands respect. They should teach that in school. And exactly what would the class be called? I asked, amused. Liberty pondered. How about Awesomeness 101? Seriously, George Washington is the man. People can't help but stare at him because he's just so awesome. Within seconds, Samuel Adams, who I had met in Boston, recognized me and said, Rush Revere, welcome. When did you arrive in Philadelphia? Just today, in fact, I said. Let me introduce you to my cousin, John Adams, who is a fellow delegate from Massachusetts, said Samuel. Pleasure to meet you, sir, said John. You have no idea how excited I am to be here and meet all of you, I said, trembling with excitement. I'm a history teacher and I brought a couple of students with me. What word in the 7th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as magnificent? Okay, 7th paragraph. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's as regal as ever. Regal. And there's a portrait of George Washington. What is another word that means portrait? I think I just gave it away. It is a painting, or you could have put picture also. So check your spelling. You don't have to put both. Just one of them is fine. And there's a portrait of John Adams by Gilbert Stuart. So who painted this portrait of John Adams? Gilbert Stuart. John Adams will go on to be the 2nd president of the United States. Gilbert Stuart, make sure you capitalize both. It's a proper noun. And what will you teach them about? Asked John Adams. Well, funny you should ask, I chuckled. We are studying the events that led to the colonizing of America and the events leading up to the American Revolution. Yes, indeed, an American Revolution. I like the sound of that, said the tall and regal-looking man who had just had to be George Washington. However, we must be united before we ever dare revolt. There is still much discord among the 13 colonies. Samuel Adams stepped forward and said, Rush Revere, let me introduce you to one of our delegates from Virginia, the illustrious George Washington, said Samuel. I'm truly honored and overwhelmed, I said. I barely know what to say. You're as presidential as I imagined. Are you running for political office, Mr. Washington? Asked John Adams. I doubt Mr. Washington is looking for this kind of office, I said knowingly. That is absolutely correct, said George Washington. But I am looking for some food before we return to Congress. Is George hungry again? Said a jovial voice from behind me. I turned to see Patrick Henry with Tommy and Elizabeth. Patrick laughed and slapped George Washington on the back. The future first president scowled and stood erect, ready to confront the man who dared invade his personal space. When he saw it was his fellow delegate Patrick Henry, he only sighed, shook his head, and returned to his military posture. Patrick laughed again and said, I try to make sure that my fellow delegate from Virginia gets fed at least every other day, but he seems to think he needs food every day. Which word in the 3rd paragraph means the same or nearly the same as disagreement? 1, 2, 3 in this paragraph. There is still much discord among the 13 colonies. Discord. Disagreement. This time, everyone laughed, and even George Washington gave a half smile. But Patrick Henry laughed the loudest. And where is my eloquent young friend Cameron? Asked Patrick. I'm afraid he was unable to make this trip, I said. But he is doing well, and I know he will be sorry he missed you. It is good to be missed, said Patrick. Better than being shot. He laughed again and was joined by the others. You must take this back to Cameron. Patrick raised his hand in the air and prompted me to do the same. When I did, he slapped my upraised palm and said, High five! He laughed and exclaimed, "Cameron will know what that means." I grinned and said, "Thank you. I'm sure he will enjoy it." "And I'm sure that my hunger grows more persistent," George Washington said. "Come, I know where we can get some hearty meat pies." The others followed him as he led the way down a cobblestone street. His long stride and tall stature made him look the part of a natural leader. "A good choice," said John Adams. "Meat pies are both delicious and filling. Even my cranky cousin would agree with me. Isn't that right, Samuel?" "Filling is not the word I would choose," Samuel argued. "I prefer satisfying." John rolled his eyes as the eight of us followed with growing appetites. I marveled to think of who I was walking with. These were four of the founding fathers of America, and two of them, George Washington and John Adams, would be future presidents of the United States of America. Which word in the first paragraph means the same or nearly the same as well spoken? And where is my eloquent young friend? Eloquent, eloquent, well spoken, eloquent. "Mr. Revere," Tommy said, "is Benjamin Franklin here?" "No, he is not a delegate at this First Continental Congress," I said. "I'm afraid he's licking his wounds after getting lambasted by Parliament for the Hutchinson letters," said John. "The what letters?" asked Tommy. John Adams continued. "The royal governor of Boston, Thomas Hutchinson, wrote letters to England asking for more British troops to fight against the American rebels, as well as advice on how to subdue America by restricting its liberties. Somehow the letters were taken and printed in the Boston newspapers. As you can imagine, the citizens of Boston were furious and wanted Hutchinson's head. He had to flee to England, and the British government demanded to know who leaked the letters." "But what does that have to do with Benjamin Franklin?" asked Tommy. John clarified. "At one point, Franklin had the letters in his possession. He was not responsible for the letters getting printed, but he took the blame so others who were innocent and wrongly accused would not get punished. He was verbally abused again and again. The brutal criticism must have been tormenting for him. It is said that he stood there silent, yet standing firm. They wanted to show he was inferior and tried to make him feel worthless," said Samuel. "The king and his parliament think all the colonists in America are inferior. It is clear that they no longer consider us British citizens," exclaimed Patrick Henry. "I wish that were all that Franklin was dealing with," said George Washington. "It is well known that Franklin's son," we'll get back to that. Which word in the 9th and 10th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as less important? 9th and 10th. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Colonists are inferior. Inferior. There it is. Benjamin Franklin, assisted by his son William, proving the identity of electricity and lightning with his famous kite and key experiment of June 1752. All right. It is well known that Franklin's son... we have another question, sorry. What month and year did Benjamin Franklin's famous kite and key experiment take place? Month and year. Here we go. June, 1752. June, 1752. Oh, another picture. Chaplain Jacob Duché leading the first prayer in the First Continental Congress at Carpenter's Hall, Philadelphia, September 1774. What are the men doing in this portrait? Talking, debating, praying, or sleeping? Tells you right there. Okay, now, what's the end of that? It is well known that Franklin's son, William, is a fierce loyalist who refuses to listen to his father's pleas to join the Patriots. They have exchanged bitter words, and I'm sure it must feel as if he has lost his son to the darkness that blinds men of the truth. Indeed, it is sad. It is a sad and difficult time for all who live in America, I said. Tommy pulled me back with Liberty and Elizabeth and whispered, I remember when we visited with Benjamin Franklin outside the Palace of Westminster. He was so kind and gave me some great fatherly advice. Liberty butted in and whispered, He called you the future of America, remember? Yeah, Tommy nodded. How can his son not see and appreciate a father with so much wisdom and goodness? But I suppose we don't really know what happens inside of families. Liberty nodded and whispered, Remember when Benjamin called me a natural phenomenon? And he said I was exactly who I was meant to be? He basically said I was awesome and the most amazing creature on the planet. Are you sure he didn't say you're naturally delusional and the most annoying creature on the planet? Asked Elizabeth with an attitude. Ah, there's the Elizabeth we all know and love, I smiled. It's good to have you join in on the conversation. Elizabeth just rolled her eyes and turned the other way. Here, we have arrived at our destination, said George Washington. Before too long, I was eating a slice of warm meat pie made with, get ready to check these ingredients, here they come, ground pork, potatoes, onions, and spices. It was absolutely delicious. I'm going to that vegetable cart, whispered Elizabeth. I'm not a big fan of meat pies. I'm coming with you, whispered Liberty. I'm not a carnivore. I called to Tommy and said, Why don't you go with Elizabeth and Liberty? Elizabeth gave me a suspicious look and said, What? You think I'm going to escape with Liberty when you're not looking? It's not that I don't trust you, Elizabeth, I said. Oh, wait. On second thought, I don't trust you, I smiled. Whatever, she said as she headed toward the vegetable cart. I turned to these legendary founding fathers and asked, I know you're about to make a decision that could separate America from Great Britain. Are you truly ready to face the consequences of this decision? I'm sure you know that King George will not give up without a fight. Patrick Henry squared his shoulders to mine and boldly said, As God is my witness, I say give me liberty or give me death. I will give my life for the cause of freedom. I will not support a crown that restricts our liberties. I will not pay the king's debt or feed his soldiers or obey without question. He will take everything from us if we let him. Parliament laughs at the thought of us governing ourselves. It is time we make America free. But we are a free people, said John Adams. Always were and always will be. As the first colonists arrived on the Mayflower and fought the elements, we will fight against tyranny always. We may be hanged, but we will die for our beloved freedom, Samuel Adams joined in. Which word in the second paragraph means the same or nearly the same as meat eater? Oh, I know you guys know what that one is. Second paragraph, way up the top. 1, 2, there it is. Carnivore. We probably didn't even need to look that one up. Ooh, now we have a picture of Rush Revere with George Washington. I nodded as George Washington stepped forward. As he spoke, it was as if the clouds parted and the sun rested upon his back and shoulders. He smiled as he looked down at each of us before saying, America was founded on freedom. Heaven opened a way for the Puritans to come and thrive in a hard and hostile land. Were they smart men? Of course they were. But I have read that men like William Bradford were more than just smart. They were people of faith and courage and integrity. I believe the only way America can prosper is to remember the religious freedoms that our forefathers fought for. Only then can the smiles of heaven bless this sacred land. We all nodded at the wisdom from the man who would be the first president of the greatest nation on earth. And for a quick moment, I thought of my pilgrim hero, William Bradford, and how sad he would be to hear that all the freedoms that they had fled England for were in jeopardy. But how happy he would be to know that many brave men in this country were fighting to keep their dreams alive. This Congress, I said, do you think it has been successful? The First Continental Congress represents the willingness of the 13 separate colonies to join together as one united government, said Patrick. Sort of like United States of America, I hinted. Yes, you could say that, said John Adams. In fact, I quite like the thought of it. And now we must return to vote as a united America, John said. We must all pray more fervently that God will help us in this most important decision, said Patrick Henry. Tommy, Elizabeth, Liberty, and I were outside Carpenter's Hall when the final session of the First Continental Congress ended. Which word in the last sentence means the same or nearly the same as nervous? I'll admit I was extremely anxious to know if the colonies decided to separate from England or not. As the doors opened and the delegates began exiting the building, I saw Samuel Adams first. I'll be right back, I said, as I ran to learn the real history of what had happened. Samuel looked satisfied as he said, a vote was taken, and the delegates of the First Continental Congress decided to cut off colonial trade with Great Britain unless Parliament abolishes the intolerable acts. If I'm not mistaken, I mused, the intolerable acts caused the port of Boston to be closed, forced the people of Boston to open their homes to the king's soldiers, or so the king's soldiers would have a place to live, and denied any Bostonian to govern their own city. That is correct, said Samuel. The king must reopen Boston Harbor, remove the redcoats from living in our homes, allow Boston to govern itself, and remove other punitive laws. And you are happy with this? I asked. Yes, of course, Samuel said. But the delegates were asked to return to their colonies and begin training their citizens for potential war against Britain. A sense of worry and dread touched my heart and mind. My own feelings surprised me. I knew the history. I knew the outcome. So why did I feel so much angst about the news from Samuel? As I pondered, I realized what it was. Simply, war means death. The men, women, and children that I had seen in Massachusetts and Virginia, the families in all the colonies, would sacrifice so much for something many Americans today take for granted: freedom. Is freedom something worth dying for? I believe it is, but not all the delegates were happy about this. However, in the end, the votes were cast, and the decision was made to officially make a stand against the King of England. Which word in the 8th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as the emotions of uneasiness and dread? Let's go see 8th paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, it's here. It's in that last one. Worry and dread. Uneasiness and dread. Worry. Angst. Maybe it's angst. I think it's angst, uneasiness, and dread. Yep, there it is. Angst. A-N-G-S-T. Uneasiness or dread. When you're dreading something, that means you don't want it to happen. And I knew that in less than 6 months, the war for America's independence would officially begin at the Battle of Lexington. Godspeed, Rush Revere, said Samuel. Godspeed, Samuel Adams, I said in return. As I walked back toward my little band of time travelers, I noticed that Tommy, Elizabeth, and Liberty had walked over to a group of boys about 30 yards away. It looked like they were taunting and teasing Elizabeth, and no surprise, Elizabeth wasn't standing for it. As I got closer, I began to hear their conversation. You don't belong in America, said a large colonial boy. I was born in America, you idiots, shouted Elizabeth. You all stink like pigs. It's like you haven't bathed in days. The boys thought that this was the funniest thing ever. We do not bathe, they all said. But we think you should jump in the sea and swim back to your precious England, said a boy with red hair. Hey, maybe we should send her back with a little gift for the king, laughed a scrawny kid who was missing a front tooth and carrying a wooden bucket. The other boys cheered him on, and before I could interfere, the scrawny kid ran up to Elizabeth with the wooden bucket. My fears were realized when I saw a mess of soupy mud launch from the bucket with deadly aim toward Elizabeth's face and dress. Suddenly, everything stopped, and everything was silent. The mud hung in the air like an ugly piece of modern art. The boys pointed and laughed like they were colonial statues. I looked for Liberty, certain he was behind this. Unblinking, Liberty's eyes were focused like lasers on Elizabeth. Although everything in the past had ceased moving, those of us from the future were still free to act. In a flash, Tommy quickly moved Elizabeth several feet to the left, and that's when Liberty finally blinked and everything went back to normal. The mud splashed to the ground, and the boy with the bucket looked shocked that he had missed his target by that much. His friends laughed at the scrawny kid like he was the one that got covered in mud. Elizabeth was stunned and confused at the same time. What just... how did... It was Liberty, said Tommy. He can do more than just open a portal to the past. As we walked away from the boys, Liberty stood between Elizabeth and the menacing boys like he was protecting her. Why did you do that? Elizabeth asked Liberty. Why did you help me when I've been so mean to you? Maybe we aren't friends yet, Liberty said, but we could be. And I wanted to show you that I don't hold any grudges. America is a land of the free, where people, like the Pilgrims and the colonists, were able to start over in a new place with a new life. True, but it's not free of bullies, said Tommy. No, said Liberty. Unfortunately, there will always be bullies. But that's why friends are so important. That's right, I said. When the colonists in Boston were bullied by King George and his intolerable acts, 12 other colonies were willing to help and support their sister colony. We're sort of like secret sisters now, Liberty chuckled. Well, except I'm a male, and we don't have the same mother, and if we did, that would be really weird. This whole thing is weird, said Elizabeth firmly. I think I just want to go back to school now. Which word in the 5th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as threatening? All right, let's go look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The menacing boys. They were threatening her. Threatening boys. Menacing. Menacing. I think that's a good idea, I said. Within minutes, we found a secluded place to time jump. Within seconds, we were back at Manchester Middle School. Elizabeth quickly dismounted and ran off like Cinderella at midnight. That was weird, said Tommy. Maybe she had to go to the bathroom, Liberty said. I think Elizabeth is at a crossroads right now, I said. I believe her greed for power and her need for friendship are battling inside of her. Well, I hope the good Elizabeth wins, said Liberty. The evil one scares me. Thanks again, Mr. Revere, said Tommy. And thanks, Liberty. It's been another amazing adventure through time. I'm glad you enjoyed it, I said. And I almost forgot. You better take these with you. I pulled out the 3 musket balls from my coat pocket. As I did, I purposefully let a small seed packet slip from my pocket and land in front of Tommy's feet. You dropped something, Tommy said. Oh, clumsy me, I said. I'd only meant to give you these musket balls for good luck. They seemed to help you with your last game, so I thought you might enjoy having these before your next one. Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. Thanks, said Tommy. He eyed the small packet I had in my other hand and asked, So what's with the little packet? Hey, does that say from B. Franklin on it? Oh, this? I said innocently. Yes, well, these are from Benjamin Franklin. I'd forgotten he gave these to me the last time we visited. It's an experiment he's been working on, and he said he finally succeeded in creating the first spaghetti seeds. Spaghetti seeds? Which word in the 3rd paragraph means the same or nearly the same as strange? 1, 2, 3. Strange. That was weird. Yep, it's weird. Yes, I replied. Apparently these seeds can grow spaghetti noodles in your garden. That's amazing, Tommy said. That guy can do anything. Any chance I could try them in my mom's garden? I don't see why not. Just take these and bring me back what you don't use, I said, handing Tommy the packet. Awesome, thanks. See ya, he said as he jogged up the stairs and into the school. As I watched Tommy leave, Liberty said, When do you think he'll discover that those spaghetti seeds are fake? Personally, I'm surprised he fell for it. Me too, I chuckled. Let's go and get some breakfast. How about bagels and cream cheese? Sounds good to me. As we started to leave the school, I was surprised to see Elizabeth again. She had already changed into her modern-day clothes and was waiting for us by the big oak tree. As we got closer, she quickly handed me a small disc. What's this? I asked. Just take it before I change my mind, Elizabeth abruptly replied. I reached out and took the disc. It's the memory card from my video camera, Elizabeth said. The blackmail video? Liberty asked. Elizabeth sighed. It sounds so mean when you say it like that. But yes, it's the video of you and Mr. Revere jumping through the time portal. Thank you, Elizabeth, I said sincerely. Yes, thank you, said Liberty. What happened? I mean, I don't know if you realize this or not, but what you're doing right now could be considered, it could be considered a nice gesture. Whatever, Elizabeth said as she looked around to see if anyone was watching. Seriously, Liberty continued, if word got out that you were doing nice things for other people, well, your reputation could be ruined. Elizabeth kept her head down and her arms folded. I could tell she was trying to decide what to say next. Finally, she lifted her head and looked at Liberty. Her voice cracked just a little when she said, You protected me, back in Philadelphia, so I wanted to thank you. You helped me, and now I'm helping you. Now we're even. As she turned to leave, she looked one last time at me and said, Mr. Revere, just to be clear, you and I are not even. I believe it was your plan to throw me into that pond at Windsor Castle. Anyway, you haven't seen the last of me, and I can't wait until our next adventure, she said with a smirk. With a flip of her long blonde hair, she turned and walked away. Ah, don't you just love happy endings? Said Liberty, smiling. Happy endings? Maybe for you, I mumbled, and decided that maybe I should start sleeping with one eye open. As we walked away from Manchester Middle School, Liberty asked, Who do you enjoy visiting the most? Benjamin Franklin, Patrick Henry, Samuel Adams, Paul Revere? I laughed and said, well, they were all very different. Benjamin Franklin's creative energy, his calm wisdom, and his brilliant mind were certainly gifts to America. His speech in Parliament may have been the reason that the king finally repealed the Stamp Act. And I know he plays a bigger role in the Second Continental Congress and the Declaration of Independence. Which word in the first paragraph means the same or nearly the same as action or thing to do? Could be considered a nice gesture. Oh yes, gesture, a nice thing to do. A nice gesture. And Liberty prodded. And Patrick Henry's bold and courageous speeches against the king's injustice created a spark for the American Revolution. I loved his enthusiasm for life and his courage to defend freedom. Oh, and I must remember to give Cam his high five from Patrick Henry. Did you ever warm up to the Samulator? Liberty joked. Are you kidding? I love Samuel Adams. I mean, he wasn't really looking for friends. He was looking for freedom, and he never doubted the cause. Well, he always seemed a little angry to me, Liberty said. Some people call it anger. I call it 100% colonial stubbornness. It was a determination mixed with a whole lot of passion. He was always ready to tell people what to believe. He was a fire starter and really good at fanning the flames of the revolution. And of course, your boyhood hero, Paul Revere, Liberty said with a big smile. Wow, he was involved in everything, I said. He was ready to serve wherever he was needed. He was strong, talented, happy. I mean, what's not to like? He's the kind of guy I want as my next-door neighbor. Dependable, always there when you need him. And his courage as a patriot with the Sons of Liberty is exactly what America needed. Although I plan to see more of him. I mean, we definitely need to time jump to witness his famous midnight ride. Ooh, I'm all for that, Liberty nodded. Which word in the 7th paragraph means the same or nearly the same as devotion or dedication? And it is not determination. Okay, so 7th paragraph. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What are we looking for? Devotion or dedication? Stubbornness. It was a determination mixed with a whole lot of passion. Oh, I bet it's passion. Let's see. Yep, there it is, passion. What about you? I asked. Who impressed you the most? Not who, but what, Liberty said. For me, it was all about freedom. What's all about me? Asked Freedom, who surprised me from behind. You startled me, I said. I knew you were there, said Liberty. I could sense you a mile away. I'm glad you're back, said Freedom. So what about me? She asked again as she slung her backpack to her other shoulder. Liberty said something like it was all about freedom. Well, not you, Liberty corrected. It's all about fighting for freedom. That's what I've learned the most the last few days. Me too, Freedom said. I mean, I haven't always believed that. But I think Samuel Adams is right when he said my freedom is worth fighting for. Sometimes we really do have to fight to live free. So starting today, I'm going to start living my name. You're looking at the new freedom. Good for you, I said. Yeah, Liberty agreed. You look different already. Speaking of looking different, said Freedom suspiciously as she reached out for the Indian feathers still in Liberty's mane. What are these? Oh, that's right. You guys visited the Boston Tea Party. That was so weird when we could talk to each other through time. I know, right? Said Liberty. Well, I better get to my first class, said Freedom, laughing as she skipped toward the school. But tell me all about your trip on my way to school, telepathically. Oh, and bye, Mr. Revere. Great seeing you. Did I mention that having freedom is a great feeling? She yelled, skipping backward. And it's worth fighting for. Well, that was fun, said Liberty. For the record, I think your students really like you as their substitute history teacher, especially Freedom, Tommy, and Cam. Oh, and we can never forget, and we never got to tell Cam about our adventure at the First Continental Congress. Maybe I'll meet him for lunch and give him all the details. I know it's still early, but lunch sounds really good about now. Instantly, Liberty looked panicked and said, Wait a minute. Have we eaten breakfast? All the excitement, I almost skipped a meal. The excitement has just begun, I thought as I patted Liberty. America was definitely feeling growing pains. It was plagued with evils like slavery and burdened by a tyrant king. It was clear our country was not perfect, and neither were our founding fathers. But our first visit with these exceptional Americans had reminded me what it means to fight for freedom and endure hard things. More than ever, I was ready for our next adventure and the truths we would learn about the American Revolution. Where do we go next? Adventures of Rush Revere at www.2ifbyt.com.